أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're here with us today. We're about to go on a really deep, reflective journey together. We'll be looking at the historical collapse of civilizations, but more importantly, we're going to map out the quiet, inner landscape of the human soul. Specifically, we're diving into the timeless wisdom found in Sūrat al-Ṭalāq, verses 8 through 11, exploring both the outer truths and the inner, spiritual path of the heart. Let's just jump right in. I want to start by sharing this quote right from our source text because it absolutely nails what we're trying to do here today. We aren't just rattling off dry historical facts. Instead, we're stepping into this universal exploration of moral physics, human vulnerability, and really profound mercy. So wherever you happen to find yourself right now, you are totally welcome here as a thoughtful guest. Let's see what these ancient words can reveal about our modern everyday lives. To kick things off, the Qur'an asks us to zoom out, like way, way out, and look at human history. It poses this incredibly heavy question. What actually happens to a community when it starts treating its vulnerable people as disposable and completely ignores the voices that came to warn it? This is what we could call the funnel narrative. We start off macroscopic. We look at the severe, real-world consequences for entire societies that just stubbornly refuse wisdom. I know it's a hard question to sit with, but asking it is literally the first step toward understanding the profound mechanics of how we either flourish or, well, fall apart. Now notice the incredible precision of the classical language here. The text uses a very specific Arabic verb, atat. This represents the classical outer reading, or what we call the zahir. It doesn't just mean a society made a tiny mistake. No, atat is that exact, dangerous tipping point when a collective ego becomes just too large to bend. It hardens, it grows proud, and it literally tips right over the edge of correctability. And classical commentators point out something fascinating. The resulting collapse isn't just some arbitrary lightning bolt from the sky. It's moral physics. It is the absolute inevitable harvest of a long, sustained human refusal to be corrected. So this brings up a crucial point. Who is the Qur'an actually speaking to when it gives this massive historical warning? It addresses the uli al-albab, the people of the kernel. Lub essentially means the kernel inside a shell. So the text is directly calling out to those of us who still have an intact inner faculty. You know, that part of you that can still feel, still reason, still discern right from wrong. This warning, it's not for the people who are already hardened. It's a plea for the people of the kernel to actively protect their intact, discerning heart from that creeping arrogance that destroys entire societies. Let's keep following this thread and see how it builds, because this is where the text funnels down so beautifully. We're shifting from the zahir, that outer reading of historical civilizations, physical streets, and literal vulnerable populations, to the batin, the inner spiritual meaning. The mystical tradition essentially takes these verses and holds them up like a mirror. In this inner reading, the civilization is your own individual soul. The physical streets, those are your governing impulses. The societal warnings are your own conscience. And the vulnerable populations are your own deep emotional vulnerabilities. And the Sufi mystics captured this inner reality perfectly. They taught that every one of us contains within ourselves a town, and that a soul, like a city, can grow arrogant. If you look at the practice of tazkiyah, the purification of the self, we learn that personal unraveling happens in the exact same way as societal collapse. It happens when we put all our energy into protecting our loudest, most ego-driven parts, and we totally ignore the quiet, vulnerable inner wisdom of our own conscience. It's pretty straightforward. If your inner city stops listening to its own warnings, it's inevitably going to taste the bitter fruit of its own isolation. But here's the beautiful part. The text doesn't just leave us in the dark. The great philosopher and commentator al-Razi had this absolutely stunning linguistic insight about this. Look at the terms used. Dhulumat, which means darknesses, is plural, but nur, meaning light, is singular. Think about it. Darkness comes in so many fragmented forms and layers, right? Cruelty, confusion, despair, greed. We can get lost in literally a million different dark rooms. But the light that returns us to our true selves, the light that leads us out, it is singularly one. No matter what dark room you find yourself in today, the door out is exactly the same. Okay, let's pivot for a second because this is where my mind was totally blown. We really have to ask, are these ancient spiritual interpretations just pretty metaphors, or are they actually backed up by modern empirical science? Like, what happens when we take these classical theological concepts about uncorrectability, plural darknesses, and a guiding light and hold them up to the mirror of modern data? Prepare to be amazed because the alignment here is absolutely incredible. Modern research is telling us the exact same story. The historian Joseph Tainter studied the collapse of complex societies, and guess what he found? They structurally fall apart when they can no longer hear warnings from their edges. And on a personal, psychological level, researchers Kruger and Dunning found that slow personal decline is strongly predicted by what they call the closing of the corrigibility window, basically our inability to receive negative feedback. Modern sociology and psychology are proving mathematically that ATAT, that arrogant uncorrectability we talked about, literally always leads to structural and personal ruin. It's wild. And it gets even more fascinating. Remember the plural darknesses and the singular light? Well, the famous psychiatrist Aaron Beck cataloged dozens of distinct cognitive distortions. Those are the plural darknesses of the mind. And the cure? A singular return to clear sight. Furthermore, how do we actually get out of that dark? Bruce Wandfeld's research shows that across all different types of therapies, the greatest empirical predictor of healing is the therapeutic alliance, having a present guide who walks right alongside you. The modern science is perfectly mirroring the ancient text. Which softly brings us right back to the spiritual tradition. You see, long before modern psychology mapped out the therapeutic alliance, the Sufi tradition intuitively built lineages of teachers, a sheikh or a murshid. This guide serves as the human face of mercy. Through beautiful adab, the etiquette of the path, a guide gently takes the willing by the hand and walks him out of the darkness. Because as both the ancient mystics and modern psychologists know, human beings don't generally walk out of their deepest darknesses alone. What you seek is seeking you, and often it arrives holding a lantern. As we sit with this and deepen our reflection, let's look at something incredibly contemplative. This is abjad. It's an ancient practice of Arabic letter numbers where words are reduced to their numerical roots. It's a really gentle practice of finding hidden symmetries in the universe. Notice how the word for city, the outer collective, and the word for kernel, the inner faculty, both reduce to the number 9. The arithmetic itself is confessing that the inner and outer worlds share the exact same material and the exact same moral physics. Even light and gardens, both reduce to 4. Following the light means you're walking on solid ground toward a very solid destination. But I really want you to look specifically at the number 3 here. In this quiet arithmetic, the words for trust, darkness, the good, and the bitter consequence all reduce down to the number 3. This is such a striking revelation. Faith and darkness literally share a number. Why? Because faith is the very response to darkness. Faith is what courageously walks into the dark to bring back the light. They are two sides of the exact same equation. It's this beautiful mathematical symmetry reminding us that even our darkest, most difficult moments are intimately bound to the potential for profound trust. So where does that trust, that profound tawakkul, actually lead us? The verse is closed with this stunning promise. God has provided beautifully for them, describing gardens with rivers running underneath. Now, we might be tempted to think of this just as a nice poetic image of the afterlife. But modern positive psychology, like the groundbreaking work of Martin Seligman, tells us that true human flourishing in the here and now empirically requires safety, belonging, meaning, and beauty. The ancient promise of the garden isn't just poetry, it's the exact foundational recipe for your flourishing today. It is an exquisite provision just waiting for you to walk toward it. So what does this mean for us? What is our practical heart guidance today? Well, I want to invite you into 4 quiet reflections. Approach these with true ikhlas, deep sincerity, and maybe even make returning to them a form of personal dhikr, a quiet, repeated remembrance. First, name the inner voice you've been ignoring in the city of your soul. Just let it speak today. Second, honestly identify where your corrigibility window has closed. Where have you become unwilling to be wrong? Third, name your specific present darkness. Don't hide from it. Look right at it so you can find that singular light out. And finally, define your personal beautiful provision. What does an exquisite, flourishing life actually look like for you right now? Sit with these questions. I know they're hard, but I promise you they are incredibly freeing. Let's close our time together with this tender munajat, a quiet address straight from the heart. O light that comes looking for those who cannot find their way, take my hand in whichever darkness I am standing in tonight. Make me one of those who can still be corrected, and lead me gently into the beautiful provision that has my name on it. Amin. Compiled with gratitude by Mir Ali Shah, a seeker sharing through the Living the Wisdom of the Qur'an explainer. Also, please forgive and accept any AI-related mispronunciations or errors in the recording. May your inner city find its light. But as we sign off, I leave you with this. If your soul is a city, what warning is whispering at your gates right now? And will you open the window to hear it?